Evolution of religions. Picture a modern person sitting quietly in their apartment, perhaps after a long day at work, suddenly struck by questions that have haunted humanity for millennia. Who am I? Why am I here? Is there something greater than myself? This scene plays out countless times across our world today, as people in the later stages of life find themselves drawn to beliefs about God and spirituality, often after beginning their adult years with skeptical hearts. We live in an age where facts trump faith, where scientific reasoning challenges ancient beliefs. Yet even in our laboratories and computer screens, the human heart still yearns for the divine. The confusion is palpable. How do we reconcile age-old spiritual truths with modern understanding? Some cannot bridge this gap and simply surrender, sitting before gurus or in prayer, seeking peace for their restless minds. But here's what's fascinating. Never before in human history have we been so divided by the very thing meant to unite us, religion. The hatred, the fear, the way we've diminished our own intelligence in the name of faith, it's unprecedented. So let's step back and trace this remarkable journey of how religion came to be. The dawn of wonder. Imagine our ancestors around 40,000 years ago. Picture early humans, not yet fully social beings, living in a world filled with mysteries they couldn't explain. The thunder that rolled across the sky, the way animals seemed to know things humans didn't, the strange visions that came in dreams, all of this seemed touched by some invisible power. These early people, still carrying the instincts of their animal past, began to see supernatural forces in the creatures around them. They painted on cave walls, trying to capture something beyond the physical world. This was the birth of what we now call animism, humanity's first attempt to name the unnamed forces of existence. The rise of heaven and authority. Fast forward to around 4000 BC, and something remarkable happened. Humans began forming true societies, and with society came hierarchy, rulers and followers, wise men and common folk. But how do you convince someone you have the right to rule them? How do you justify power? Enter God, not just as a mysterious force, but as the ultimate authority. Clever leaders began claiming divine mandate for their rule. The heavens have chosen me, they declared. Some even went so far as to proclaim themselves as gods or special messengers of the divine. By 2000 BC, we see figures like Abraham emerging, and the fertile lands around the Nile River becoming hotbeds of sophisticated religious thought. This period, from roughly 2000 to 1600 BC, was like a spiritual renaissance. Religious teachers and seers appeared across the world, each defining what it meant to live righteously. Religion transformed from a vague sense of the supernatural into a concrete set of rules, behaviors, and beliefs. The age of sacred texts. Then came writing. Around 1200 BC, humans gained the ability to preserve their thoughts permanently. Suddenly, religious ideas that had been passed down through generations of storytellers could be captured forever. The Rig Veda, the Old Testament, and other sacred texts began taking shape, though like a game of telephone played across centuries, it's nearly impossible to know which words were original and which were added by later writers. What's striking is how all the major religions seem to emerge from Central Asia. Zoroastrianism, Judaism, and Hinduism all bloomed in roughly the same time and place, like flowers in a spiritual garden. The rebels and the mystics. But not everyone was content with the established religious order. Throughout history, rebellious spirits emerged, challenging the status quo. Take Jainism, for example, with its naked saints and radical doctrine of complete nonviolence, a direct rebellion against ritual animal sacrifice. Or consider yoga, perhaps the most successful religious rebellion of all. Yoga was revolutionary because it declared something audacious: you are God. While other religions placed divine power firmly in the hands of deities and priests, yoga whispered to each individual, the divine spark lives within you. This was spiritual democracy, and it terrified the religious establishment. The ancient yoga texts described God as formless, impossible to contain in any single image or doctrine. This meant people could practice yoga while maintaining their own understanding of the divine, a spiritual freedom that was both liberating and threatening to organized religion. The inner journey. According to the Upanishads, those profound philosophical texts from around 600 BC, the boundary between the individual soul and the universal spirit dissolves entirely. The famous mantras "Thou art that" and "I am the Absolute" weren't just poetic phrases, they were declarations of cosmic identity. Imagine the radical nature of this teaching: every person carries within them the same essence as the divine. We're not separate from God, we're temporarily imprisoned in bodies and minds that create the illusion of separation. Death isn't the end but simply a costume change for the eternal soul, moving from one life to another based on the quality of our actions, our karma. The goal wasn't to worship an external deity but to achieve union with this inner divinity, to break free from the endless cycle of birth and death. Various schools of yoga developed different methods, some focused on physical postures, others on breath control, still others on meditation and mantras. The light and the question mark. Those who claim to have achieved this mystical union describe remarkably similar experiences: a moment of perfect peace where time and space dissolve, surrounded by brilliant light that somehow contains all knowledge and love. Even people with no meditation training report identical experiences during near-death encounters. But here's where our story takes a modern twist. Recent medical research suggests these profound spiritual experiences might result from oxygen deprivation in the brain, hypoxia. The very breathing techniques used in yoga might create the same conditions that produce these divine encounters. Are we communing with God, or are we simply creating beautiful brain chemistry? A cosmic perspective. Perhaps there's another way to understand our place in this vast universe. Imagine Earth as one of countless worlds, spinning around one of billions of stars. The beings living at the atomic or quantum level at extremely high temperature on some distant star or exoplanet, our entire human civilization might appear as a brief flicker, a single moment in cosmic time. From this perspective, we're like incredibly sophisticated biological computers, carrying the entire history of life in our DNA, programmed by forces so vast we can barely comprehend them. We feel free, but we're part of an automated process so complex it gives us the illusion of choice while controlling our every movement. The Jain philosophers had a beautiful way of expressing this mystery. They taught that reality has infinite aspects, and any single perspective, no matter how profound, captures only a fraction of the truth. We've always looked to the stars searching for heaven and God, but perhaps our destiny is to keep seeking these answers eternally, never quite grasping the full picture. The liberation. So where does this leave us, these modern seekers sitting in our apartments, wrestling with the same questions that drove our ancestors to paint on cave walls? Perhaps the answer lies not in finding the perfect religion or the ultimate truth, but in the seeking itself. The ancient wisdom suggests liberation comes through detachment, not from caring, but from the desperate need to possess and control. Concentrate on the void that is everything. Connect with that mysterious force that moves through all existence. Even the stars and planets have their cycles of birth and death. In the end, whether we call it God, the universe, consciousness, or simply the great mystery, something greater than our individual selves seems to be beckoning. The journey of religion is really the journey of the human heart, forever reaching toward transcendence, forever asking the eternal questions that make us beautifully, tragically, gloriously human. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps the reaching itself is the answer we've been searching for all along.